This video is intended for the Innovation Lab at DuPont Ball Library at Stetson University. In this video, we'll be going over tools, specifically the smoothing brush and Defeature brush, that you can use on a finished model in the Artec 3D Studio 12 professional software. So to begin, this is a previous model that I've done on a previous video, where it was a couple of scans were put together to create a final fusion product. As you can see, there are some other additional data that needs to be taken care of, data that's extra and kind of floating away from the model, and there are some uneven surfaces that we will address using these two tools. If you go to the editor, you'll see the two tools. There's smoothing brush, and then there's Defeature brush. We're going to start with the Defeature brush. As you can see, there are directions up at the top left that say control bracket to decrease and control bracket the other direction to increase the tool size. So if I'm hitting the control button, this red ring appears. You can also use a mouse scroll wheel to go ahead and expand or reduce the size of the area of which the Defeature brush will be working. Now the Defeature brush does two things. It can either eliminate pixels or it can fill holes. For instance, this cluster of polygons right here, if I select it, it cleans it away. So anything extraneous data it will get rid of, especially when there's space behind it. As you can see, it's floating in space, so it knows it's not supposed to fill a hole. And that went away. And you can see things like this, same thing. Let's see if there's any others. You might have ones that get close, like you can see right here at the top of his shell. You have a little point that should not be there. Now, if you were to do it from this angle and use the Defeature tool, it'll get rid of this and this just fine. However, you have to wonder about what it might do to the other side of the model. And let me show you what I mean by that. I'm going to perform a Defeature brush here, and you can see it removed it. But as you are pointing down throughout the model, whatever you do with any brush can reflect onto the other side of the model. So not sure what might have been affected, so the best thing to do in this case is do a Control Z, so it will undo your change, and then you could do Control Y to see how it affects it again, because Control Y redoes your latest change. So you can see right here there's a little portion of his top inner mouth. Here, I'll do it again. That's Control Y. Here it is right here. Control Z, Control Y. You see how it's moving just ever so slightly. That's because that was, as we performed our Defeature brush, the other side of the model that was affected. So you can see it right there. Actually smoothed it out. Once again, this Defeature brush not only gets rid of polygons that might be just hanging out in space, but also fills holes. So what it's doing is, it's a little bit of a concave surface. It's actually filling it in more. That's what it's doing on this side. So the best scenario for you to try to use a Defeature brush is if you can try to get in to a degree where you have empty space. So for instance, see how I created, there's no model back here. This is all gray space area. That's probably the best way in which I can try and commit to removing this extraneous piece of data. Now there will be some very tricky ways in how to do this when you come up against other different models, but for right now you can see I omitted it and it is gone. I could also do that with this one right here, this little piece of data. You can see I put space behind it, so if I go like this, there's no model behind it, so it won't adjust the model's appearance at all. So that's one tricky thing about using these tools, is that if you do something to the surface of one side and your brushes might affect the pixels on the other side of the object if you haven't orientated your object in such a way where you're not going to possibly entail, I guess they call it back culling, where it is the opposite side of the object that you're working on. Alright, so that is the Defeature brush. Yeah, I'll do one more over here just to show you, like right here. If I move it like this and start the Defeature brush, I should get a clean cut along this spike. Let's take a look. Yeah, kind of clean. You can clean up from the other side as well since it is at an angle. So I'll make it that straight. Kind of a quick way to go ahead and clean some areas that might need it. And you can even do it on major stuff. It doesn't have to be on little things like that. We can, like this, make this straight. Kind of get this up in here like this, so we can perform a clean cut right at the bottom. You can use this data cloud too to see how you can align stuff. Like I'm aiming for this pedestal to be straight, so if I go right here, I know it's straight because on the other side I can see that in the data cloud that it's as even as possible. And then take my Defeature brush, try to make it also as straight as possible while moving it across the table. And it will cut straight through since there's space behind it. And I also selected all, from space to space over the object. It knows that it knows that I want to cut it. So I can go like this, like that. Kind of select everything. And then it will take it away. And that is the Defeature brush. Very useful. Oh, it also fills gaps like this. So it filled that gap after I cut it. Still is a little bit thing here, but we can use hole filler to kind of fill that in. Alright, next tool we use is smoothing brush. So for instance, this will also do the same thing as the Defeature. You do it to one side, it will perform it on the other side of the model. So if I use it here, you can also use the scroll wheel to reduce the size of the effective area. So I'll just do here, right here. So let's say wanted to get this patch of the when I omitted that one piece of the shell before, now I can go over here and try to make this a little bit more even by smoothing it out. You can also increase the intensity of the smoothing feature. You get it up to 10, it should smooth down a lot quicker, a lot faster. But it could be too fast depending on how evenly you want the smooth to be achieved. So I'm going to leave it at 1. But also, if I go over here and let's say I want to smooth out this piece right here. Let's see. Let's turn it around. This is a part for a screw in the toy of the Bowser. But if I wanted to smooth this out, I could do that right here. So you can see it's getting more smoothed out. But it also will affect the other side of the model as I've got this orientated, so I'm actually working through with the model. So let's take a look at the other side of what I possibly could have done. If I do Control Z, Control Y, so I'm not seeing what I possibly could have affected, and maybe I didn't. It's possible that it was going through and didn't actually get affected. But it's also good to do the Control Z and Control Y from different areas of different perspectives of your object just to see what you could have possibly hit. So I went from that direction down here, and I don't see anything as of yet. So you might get lucky in some regards, where it does not affect the other side of the model. Alright, so that's the smoothing brush as well. Let's see, we do another one. You can see I just smoothed that up on the back of his neck. What else? You could also smooth bridges if you needed it, like down here. As you can see, that was quite bumpy, but you go around here, you can smooth it. And if you want the edges smoother, you could reduce the size and just go quickly over an edge. It's kind of like that. So those are the two tools, and that's how they can be used. They're best to be used on a finished model rendering before you export it out for STL to print out.